Hello and welcome back to the channel. I hope that you're doing well. I recently received a comment wondering about the art supplies I brought with me. I'm currently on a 2-month trip abroad visiting my boyfriend and his family, and I travelled with only a carry-on and a personal item, so a backpack and a handbag. And that meant I had to plan out the daily necessities I was bringing with me, so toiletries, clothes, and then also the art supplies I brought with me. And not compromise on the daily necessities. I brought plenty of clothes and then I worked with the space that I had after that. Now this is not a super minimal setup. I wanted variety in terms of paper surfaces and drawing versus painting and the supplies I wanted to bring with me. So this is not a minimal setup. But it's minimal in the fact that I managed to fit it into a handbag and a backpack. So first of all, we're going to go over the pocket setup. So in my jacket pocket, I had this Art Creation 9x14, roughly A6 sketchbook and a 4-in-1 Bic ballpoint pen. When I was last visiting my boyfriend, I didn't bring a pocket sketchbook with me. I just had an A5, and it was something that I ended up realizing in the process of that trip that I was really missing, and it was something that I really wanted. So I knew this time that I definitely wanted to go with an A6 sketchbook and an A5 because A5 is my preferred like at-home drawing size, whereas this is perfect for things like traveling, always having a sketchbook on me, which you'll hear some artists always say you should always have something on you to draw. This easily fits in my jacket pocket. While I'm here, I can either always have it in my jacket pocket, or if it's a really, really sunny week, since it's the middle of summer, I can just permanently have this in my handbag, and then at least I know I always have something with me. This particular sketchbook is for everything. So it's for planning, for social media, for art that I want to do, for paintings, drawings, but then also it is a note-taking place for studying. It is a note-taking place for random things that are happening. So at the back of the sketchbook there are Digimon cards because we went to a board game and card game store and my boyfriend has been teaching me how to play Digimon and we've been building a deck. I started out with a starter deck and now I'm building my own, so I have a list of different cards at the back of this sketchbook that I'm working on obtaining, and it's also obviously a place to sketch. So I have daily warm-ups in here and then also just drawing exercises, rough sketching, more detailed sketching. It's for anything that I could want it to be for. And I don't tend to show the contents of the sketchbook in its whole. I'll show individual pages on social media, but not the whole thing. And that just frees me up to do whatever I want in it, really. Like, this is a sketch I did, if it's gonna focus. I did this in graphite, and it's of a snow leopard. But otherwise, it's just a place where I can go to do anything. That covers my pocket setup. Now for the handbag, the personal item. I can't remember if I mentioned, but I do apologise about the shadow. I'm working with what I have right now, and hopefully I can try and get a lighting setup done for future videos, but for right now I apologise about the tripod. I tried different angles of the tripod and this was the least amount of shadows I could get right now. But anyway, I brought 2 sketchbooks with me in my handbag, and that makes up all the sketchbooks I brought with me. I knew that I wanted to have an A5 and an A6, and I was deliberating on what kind of sketchbook to bring with me for weeks, to be honest. I didn't know if I wanted to bring a soft cover or a hard cover because there's pros and cons of those. Hard covers are much bulkier and a lot heavier. These are lighter, thinner. but you don't have the support behind them because of that as well. So you have to, oop, I bumped you there. So you have to factor in the different pros and cons and just make a compromise about what you want. And I ended up deciding on soft cover because I could fit more variety in. This is not too much thicker than some of my hardcover sketchbooks, but it's also not too much heavier either because of them being softcover. So I ended up going with a Stillman and Burn Epsilon and a Stillman and Burn Nova Grey. So this is grey toned paper. I'll get to the here. So this is grey toned paper. This is the back of the sketchbook where I do media tests. And then the Epsilon is white, smooth, thin paper. So they have thin and heavy paper. The Zeta is the heavyweight version of the Epsilon, I believe, if I'm remembering them correctly. So I brought 2 softcover sketchbooks with me for variety. And that was everything in terms of sketchbooks. This is the pencil case that I brought with me in my handbag. It is set up almost entirely like the pencil case tour I did recently. So if you want to see what's in this pencil case, check out that video. I'll pop it up here or in the description. The only difference is that the ballpoint pens, I had one in my pocket and then I put the other 2 loose in my handbag. So other than that, it is set up pretty much exactly the same. I think it's exactly the same. I don't remember putting anything else in anyway. Now moving on to the backpack, I brought this pencil case. Now, I didn't want to have the refills for my mechanical pencils in this pencil case. There isn't really that much room to put all of the refills in. So this is a refills and spares pencil case and then an extras pencil case. It started out as a refills and spares, but then I realized that I could still fit in extra things and it didn't really add to the bulk. I could still fit it into my backpack just fine after I had all my clothes and everything in there, so I just added in some extras. In terms of the spares and refills, I have the different mechanical pencils that I use, and then I have spares of the pens that I use the most of. So the brush pen that I use the most, which is the Uni Pin Fine Line brush nib, and then also a Micron. I have 3 grey alcohol markers, and these are the Shinhan ones. It's the Cool Grey 1, 3 and 6 for value studies. I have 2 water brushes, and then I brought a couple graphite pencils. So we have, I may as well just get in here and show you. I have a Tombow Mono 100B and 6B. And then this is the Faber-Castell Pitt Graphite Matte in 12B. And I also have in there as well the 2B of the matte pencils. The matte pencils are the ones that have less graphite shininess to them. And then I also, if you see there, I have a General Cedarwood HB pencil as well. And that's just so that I have a little bit more variety in terms of the pencils that I want to use. I didn't want to have, because this was the pencil case that I had the easiest access to, if I can talk, the easiest access to on the flight, because this would have been in the overhead bins. This one had things like my mechanical pencils in, because I didn't want to sharpen. on the flight. So my sharpener is inside this little baggie, and then I have my good old ultramarine and burnt sienna watercolour pot there, which I've shown a few times before now. A glue tape stick, I'm not sure how you'd call these, it's like the little rolling tape to stick things in my sketchbook. The 2 water brushes, it's just a normal Pentel, I think this is the medium, and then the Caran d'Ache. Both of these were empty when I was flying. And then there's the refills, the alcohol markers, the spare pens. I also brought a spare brush pen as well. I use brush pens quite a bit. Honestly, I didn't really need to bring them. If I wanted to, I could have bought spares over here, but to save money, I already had these at home and I could fit them in, so I brought them with me rather than buying them over here. The Cedar Point HB. If it wants to focus, it doesn't want to focus. There we go. The HB. And then the rest of the pencils in here, once I get out the 2 graphite ones I already mentioned, the rest of the pencils in here are all polychromos pencils. And I went through the ones that I have and just picked out a colour palette that I have enough variety with without bringing all of them with me. And that's everything that I fit in this pencil case. This pencil case is pretty nice because, especially for pencils, it fits them all other than Blackwing really well. And it stays nice and thin, even though I managed to fit quite a lot in here. So I'll pack this back up and meet you again momentarily. So a little bit about this pencil case as well is that, again, it was mainly for refills and spares so that I wouldn't have to buy them over here and just save some money because I could fit this into my backpack easily. And then once I realised that I could fill it a little bit more, I just added more variety things that I wanted with me. Do I necessarily need all of this? No, but does it make me happy by having this variety? Yes. It makes me happy and I was able to fit it in, so why not in my eyes? The other things that I had in my backpack were this watercolour palette, which I kept in, and I'm still keeping in this plastic bag. I had it in plastic bag so that if there were any running and leaking of paints, it wouldn't end up getting over everything else and all of my clothes in my backpack. The way that I set up my backpack from bottom to top was all of my clothes, which were the bulk of it, and then I had this flat on top. So if this was the bottom and this was the top, I had this flat like this on top because most of the time I'd be keeping my backpack so that this would be kept flat, and I tried to keep it that way in the overhead bin, but I couldn't really, so it was like this for quite a while, about 8-9 hours, and it ended up being fine. I didn't have any leaking. This I've shown in some recent videos as well. I have a palette set up where I also go over the colour choices, and then also a paint along of a lioness, so you can see this palette in action, but you'll be seeing it in action over the next few weeks anyway. I went with this one even though it's larger because, again, I wanted that variety. I didn't want to bring the micro palette with me like I did last time. I wanted to have more paints available, but without bringing like a big studio palette at the same time. This palette is smaller than an A5 sketchbook, and I was able to fit it in my bag with room to spare, so again, why not? The last thing that I had in my backpack was this, and this was in the laptop section of my backpack. This serves a few different purposes. So in here I have a thin MDF board. I have a couple of these that I use for painting and drawing at home, and I brought this with me for a few different reasons. One, it added just a little bit of stability to my backpack in terms of giving it like a spine, but then also this can act as a drawing surface for when I'm sat down, and I can use this almost like a little drawing tray while I'm sat down and wanting to sketch with the soft cover sketchbooks. And then this also acts as a painting backing as well while I'm painting. So the other things I have in here are 2 watercolour blocks. So again, this is not a very minimal setup, but I did manage to fit all of this in and still manage to have all of my clothes and toiletries somehow. Maybe my backpack is a TARDIS, who knows, but I have 2 watercolour blocks with me. I have the cold press and the hot press of the 7 by 4.9 inch blocks. I brought these with me because I wanted to have some 100% cotton painting paper rather than bringing a sketchbook that I wanted to paint in. I wanted my sketchbooks to be for drawing, because the sketchbooks that I use for painting, like the Etcher one, I'm not really going to feel as comfortable just rough sketching and pencil sketching in there on top of the usual painting and stuff I do. So I decided for painting that I wanted to use blocks, and then this will then act as a place for me to put the loose sheets when I'm done as well, and they'll be protected by that behind them. And I also brought these ones with me because these are the student grade, standard grade blocks that I own, and I didn't want to bring something too precious with me. It's still 100% cotton. I've been enjoying using them, but it's also not too precious at the same time. These were really cheap, but still really, sorry for knocking you again, still really good for me to use. I enjoy using them. The last thing I had, which I don't have on it right now, I had these 2 clipped to the board like that, but they're just loose in there right now because I've had this out. I just put it back in here just for the purpose of showing you. And that covers everything that I brought with me. I managed to fit a fair amount in the backpack and the handbag, and then also on top having some stuff in my pocket as well. This has enabled me to just have a portable studio, essentially. I have enough of anything that I could want to play around with. 3 alcohol markers is fine for playing around with, especially when you just use grey tones, because they're very versatile. But then I still have wet media to colour with, I have dry media to colour with because I have colour pencils. The only thing that I haven't shown in here is that at the bottom of my handbag I do have 2 Tombow markers. They're the purple Tombow markers that I used in some value study videos a few weeks back. Those I don't have to hand right now, but those are just like really long and they don't fit in any of my pencil cases, so I just had them loose at the bottom of my handbag. Some of this I will be keeping here probably, maybe, I'm not too sure. The things that I bought while I've been here, like the fixative, are going to be staying here, of course. But one thing I can kind of do is set up a little home base here so that I have to bring less back and forth each time. But we'll see about that. But thank you for watching, and thank you for asking about what I brought with me, and I will see you next time. Bye! Peanut, you are being a little gremlin, baby. You are being a little gremlin. You are being a gremlin. Are you gonna let me film? Are you gonna let me film, or do I have to pet you? Do I have to just pet you? Don't chew the thing.